Several months ago, a person in their teens messaged me. He had some pretty serious questions about God and Christian beliefs, and he said that when he tried to ask his parents, they got upset and told him that he needs faith. I groaned inwardly because I've seen the faith of a lot of people eventually fade away because they had questions, but when they asked them, they were either shut down or told to just believe. Are there questions that should not be asked when it comes to faith? Hi, I'm Kirk, and I'm a scientist and a philosopher and a person who spends a lot of time thinking about the why questions in life. So if you're interested in discussions pertaining to God, science, and life, then please subscribe to my channel here where I'll be posting on a regular basis. You can also subscribe to my social media accounts, and the links are below. Years ago, a friend of mine who is a retired school principal told me about some very interesting research he had come across in his field. Apparently, there are two phases in how a child embraces the values of a parent or teacher. In the early years of a child's life, the child is simply told what is right or wrong, or what is true or false. Sometime in the teen years, however, all that training needs to be repeated, but this time the parent or child must explain why something is right or wrong, or true or false. If the parent or teacher fails to do that, there is a very good chance that the values a child was taught when they were young will be eventually abandoned. A serious mistake older people make with people in their teens is to misunderstand why that person is asking the question. They often assume the young person is challenging what they have been taught, when in reality, they sincerely want to know the reasons behind it or the rationale for accepting it. As a philosopher and scientist, I believe that no question should be off limits. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask me about them. You can also follow the link in the description to write in to someone confidentially. If you have questions, no matter how difficult, I think a legit Christian has a moral obligation to give you a thoughtful response. They may not be able to respond to your question to your satisfaction, so ask if there is someone that they could point you to, or who may be able to provide the depth that you're actually looking for. Think through everything that you believe. One of the major weaknesses of our culture today is that people believe things not because they sat down and came to a well-reasoned conclusion, but simply because the belief is something they want to believe. Unfortunately, that cultural weakness is also common in many Christians. It wasn't always that way. For much of history, Christian thinkers were leaders in the academic world. However, over the past 150 years, that has slowly changed. Today, when a person begins to ask the why questions, they often experience a negative reaction, as if they're a troublemaker. If you have questions, it shows that you are a thinking person. Thinking more deeply about your beliefs is part of growing in your faith. It is a natural, exciting development in your own understanding and in figuring out what is true and false, and what the grounds are for your faith. It is a fulfilling road that you can continue to walk for the rest of your life, because none of us ever reaches the point where we understand and know everything, not by the wildest long shot. I'm not sure who's watching these videos I'm making, but there are a couple points I'd like to make. First, if you have serious doubts about your faith, please ask questions. Yes, some people may get disturbed at the questions you ask and react in a negative way, but don't give up. Find someone who has already thought through similar questions and is happy to talk with you. Please check out my own website in the links below, where I try to provide thoughtful responses to some of the big questions in life. Second, we need to carefully think through everything we believe. In the Bible, the Christian is told to always be ready to give something that in ancient Greek was called an apologia for the things they believe. The term apologia was the ancient Greek word for describing a well-reasoned defense in a Greek court of law. If you'd like to read a humorous example, check out the chapter in Plato called Apologia, where Socrates gives his own defense in a Greek court of law. The hilarious part is when he suggests what his punishment should be. So the takeaway is that despite the culture we live in today, each one of us should think through what we believe so that hopefully we will eventually be able to give a well-reasoned explanation for why we believe something. So if you're asking hard questions, see it as something that will help you grow in your ability to think deeply about your faith so that you can better explain it to others. Third, we should encourage people to ask questions of our faith. I taught a class at our church with about 35 high school students. I frequently give out my number, letting them know that they can text me anything pertaining to issues challenging their faith. Finally, when you reach the point where people start asking you hard questions, don't just give them an answer and think that you've done your job. An answer isn't really an answer unless the person who asked the question feels that you have understood what they asked and responded in a way that they're satisfied with. They may need time to contemplate what you said and may wish to ask follow-up questions, which should always be welcomed. The best way to respond to a question is through a two-way conversation. I think I was around 18 years old when I decided that I should never be afraid of a question that challenged my beliefs. If what I believe is true, then there will be an answer. And if what I believe is false, then I should be grateful to find that out. Since then, I have engaged in literally thousands of hours of thinking through and responding to questions and challenges to what I call legit Christianity and faith in God at the highest academic level, including conferences and publications. I've found out that the beliefs of Christianity can survive the most rigorous challenges through a well thought through and reasoned response. That raises the question of the role of faith. So let's take a look at that in my next video. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video or at least found it thought-provoking. And if you did, please share it, or you can leave a comment in the section below. And also, don't forget to hit the like button.